Hello, welcome to your Lab 10 demonstration video. I've already started the Learner Lab and I've got everything up and working, and look, I even have the web page open in a browser just because that's a useful thing. And I've even SSH'd into it from the command line because you should know how to do all of that by now, right? So before we begin, you're going to want to make sure you start your Learner Lab and log into your www instance using the command line. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to update our system and install PHP. So update, and we can do this on one line with a semicolon. Install PHP. And let that go. While that's going, before it finishes, I want to show you something quick. Notice that link to form PHP worked because it already exists. However, we see the PHP code on the screen. That's because it's not installed. This could be an issue that that you run into in the lab. If you haven't installed PHP, that's going to happen. So it looks like we've installed PHP. Yep, everything's good to go. We're going to create our first script to test it and see if it works. So we're going to do this from the command line because it's a really simple script. It's 3 lines. Sudo var www.html hello.php. And you could actually code web pages like this, right? But using a graphical tool like Visual Studio Code, I think you've seen the benefits. But there's no reason you couldn't do it this way. So we've got our opening PHP tag, right? And I'm immediately going to do the closing one. And then we're going to echo hello world. Because that's always the first thing you do when you learn a language, isn't it? So we're going to save it. And remember I told you, echoing out text like this, not great. Not a great way of doing it. So how do we view it in the browser? Well, we've got our domain name. We just put hello.php behind it. And there we go. Isn't that awesome? It's really simple. If we view the page source, we just see hello world, right? We don't see any of the code. That's because it's all done on the server, right? It's server-side scripting. So we're not going to see any of the PHP in the browser like you do with HTML. You just wrote your first PHP script. We're going to write better than that, though. So, just going to minimize this. Oh, there's Baby Yoda. And we're going to open form.php. We don't have to create it because I gave you a template. It's already here. It's in the lab 6 to 10 repository, and I'm going to just pull updates just in case. There shouldn't be anything, but that way we got everything up to date. So I've given you a bunch of stuff here, a whole bunch of stuff, and I gave you some code. Don't worry about that too much. Let's turn word wrap on. We'll get to that shortly. But right down here at the bottom where it says HTML goes here, guess what you're going to start doing? We're going to put some HTML down there. So we're going to steal all this stuff because we can. Right? And I'm just going to put it below that line. So there's our doc type and everything. Let's say, let's cancel. That's not going to actually work here in the preview. So let's just close the preview because it's PHP. So you're going to preview it on the server. It's kind of a drawback, but we're going to do some cool stuff. And then we're gonna change things up a bit. What did I tell you to do? The title should be form. So let's fix that. we've linked everything. We've got our comment because we copy pasted. Isn't copy paste awesome? We're going to move that down here, right? And we're going to move this up here. Whoops, I just got rid of a bunch of code. I didn't want to do that. And we're going to call this media.html. And normally I would say check it out and see if everything works, but, well, you can't really unless you push it to the server. So now we're going to start creating our form. So we're going to first insert a heading level 1 tag, an H1 tag. We're going to call it user registration. And then we're going to insert our form. So form, method, we're going to use post. So our data is going to be in the body of the packet, right? And action, that's going to be the name of this file, form.php. There's other ways to do this. This may not necessarily be the most secure way of doing it, but it's the simplest. That's what we're learning. So we've got, whoops, that should be part of the form, technically. Because if we stylize our form, we want that to be part of the form. So now we're going to insert a bunch of input fields, and I've given you sample code for the first one. Don't just copy paste it, type it in, right? And then I gave you a list of things to do with the rest of them. So we're going to do a field for first name first. So generally you want to put a label here, and you can actually, there's syntax you can put around this to make it a label. So our type is text, our name is first name. So this is the name that it's going to be pulled out of in the server-side script. It doesn't have to match the variable name you're using, but you might want it to. Just saying. And its value is going to be, here's where we're going to print out some PHP. Echo the value of fname. Close our tag. And then we're going to add a span. Class equals error. PHP echo fname error, which I've actually given you those variables already. I'll close our span. So that's our first one. Every single input field should have a name submitted. If you leave that out, it's not going to be sent to the server for processing. The embedded PHP code here, that's going to be the variables in your script that you're using, and we're going to touch on those later. So just kind of follow along with what I've told you to do, and we'll get to the rest. So to do, we're going to include, I gave you a list of things here, right? Last name, email, password, date of birth, phone number. I gave you a variety of things so I could show you the different input types and how they work. So I'm actually just going to steal all of this, right? This is the easier way to do this. And then we're going to change this to last name. Whoops. That should be lname, and lname error. The downside to this is, if I made a mistake here, guess what I just replicated everywhere else. So we got that one. We're going to do email next. So I'm not going to steal everything here. I could. I mean, type is email, name is going to be email, value. We've got our PHP here, right? So what this is going to do by putting the value in here is it's going to fill the box with whatever's put in the variable after you process the form, which is a useful thing. So that way if you've got errors, you don't wipe the user's form. Email, error, and then close our span. So 3 more to do. Password, a little bit more than 3 more to do, but this is probably going to be one of the longer labs in the course. It just is what it is, right? So password, we're going to have a type of password, name of password, value, whoops. I got too many quotes there. So echo password. Oh, missed our closing PHP. That's why it didn't like stuff. And an error, right? There we go. That's better. I think. What did I do? What did I do? I did something. That's what I did. That's why it wasn't showing up properly. And then we have our span. I'm going to steal the span and change the stuff. Just speeds it up a bit. So it's password, error, date of birth. So input type is going to be date in this case. Name. I'm going to call it DOB. And I think I'm going to steal this stuff again, because it did speed it up a bit. So that's going to be DOB for date of birth. And this is going to be DOB error. And then phone, number. So input type is tell there. We're going to give it the value. I'm just going to steal that stuff again, right? Whoops. I stole the wrong stuff. So this is going to be phone. And phone error. And then we're going to do a select drop down for our province. Input. No, not input. Just select. So the way select drop downs work is kind of interesting. Whoops. I don't know why that did that. Let's fix that. So our list has a name, but it also has options, and those options have values. And everything in between the opening option and closing option tag, that's actually what's going to appear in the form in their drop-down. A note about this, these are going to appear in the order you put them in. So we're going to add all of them for British Columbia. I'm just going to shorten it to BC for the value. COLUMBIA, there we go. I apologies to anyone from BC who may be watching. Whoops. So our value is New Brunswick here. Again, I'm going to shorten that. And, oh, this one's going to be fun to shorten. NL, I think, is Newfoundland and Labrador. Oops. NS is Nova Scotia. Trying to get at least down to Ontario, because I want to show you something on Ontario. I'm not going to do the whole list. You should totally do the whole list. I couldn't remember the code for Ontario, or Nunavut. So a handy thing you could do here. Oops, I didn't mean to get rid of that. There we go. Is put selected next to the value, and that will be the default one selected. So if you know, for example, that you've got a country drop down and the majority of your users are from Canada because you're a Canadian-based company, you could totally do that. So finally, some finishing touches on our form. We're going to do an input, two inputs. A submit button, now whatever you put as its value, that's the text or image. You can use images that shows up on the button, and a clear button or a reset button. The input type is reset. And then close our form, which it stuck back there, which is crazy. And I mean, technically, you usually want all that indented one more. Throwing it out there. And you might want to include some break tags at the end of each of these, just to make it, it's going to look ugly if you don't. But let's save it. Let's actually just push it to GitHub and pull it into the server quick, just to see what we got. So we'll stage all our changes. Lab 10, form, HTML form commit. Let's sync it. And then we will go to our server. cd var, no, we can't just, that's where we want to go. Git pull. There's our form. Sudo cp-r star var www.html. Let's do an ls there. There's our form, and there's hello.php. Oh, hello.php we created locally, right? So now, whoops. Didn't quite want all of those closed. Now if we go back to our instance, let's just go back. Oh, we're getting an error, which means I probably made a mistake somewhere in my code. So if you get a 500 level error like this, a useful way to troubleshoot these, I had to pause for a second, is right here. So there we go. And what did we get? Unmatched curly brace line 58. And yeah, this is the Red Hat based error log. I'm used to dealing with Red Hat based servers, not so much Ubuntu. So let's go take a look. Line 58. That's not in the code I gave you, is it? That's not the right code. Wrong Visual Studio Code editor. Oh shit, that might be in the code I gave you. Oh. Yeah. Yeah. I'm gonna fix that. I didn't remove my closing curly braces in the template I gave you. Oops. Initial commit form. It's not the initial commit. Second, try initial commit form lab 10. Something like that, I don't know. Did we staged everything, right? Yeah, that's fine. So everything's going to our server, so now we gotta do all the stuff we just did again, but it's not the end of the world. Git pull. And then sudo c, whoops. I'm just gonna hit up and grab that. And now we go to our web browser. Hey, there's our form running on our server. That's great. So everything was good except for the errors that I put in the template. Oops, guess I'm gonna have to go fix that after. And I guess if you're watching this and you're trying to follow along before I've done that change, just go remove those. So there's our form. It's kind of ugly, but it's there. So we probably want to put a break tag at the end of each of these just to make them appear. Yes, there are better ways of doing this through CSS, but that's the way I'm going to deal with it. And I know I said I was going to put breaks in. I did it a different way. I wanted to test to make sure it worked first. Oops. So instead of putting a line break in on each one, I just input display block, and we get this. Actually, I want to try something else. Let's see what this does. I'm going to pause just for the sake of keeping. I'll leave it open. It's fine. It's good to see me do this, right? So that's whoops. That's where I wanted to be. Let's stage our changes again. Changed input display type lab 10. Sync it, say okay, that's fine. I just don't want to see that again anymore. So that's synced. Back to our server. Whoops, that's not our server. That's our server. Git pull. And let's try that. And let's let's go back. Nope. Nope, block was what we wanted. So I'm not going to pull it in this time. But we'll go back to block. That's not the right. I got the lab instructions open as well. So that's one way of doing it. And then we want these to appear on separate lines, so we could just put a break in. At least we didn't have to put breaks in everywhere. So that was great. So on to stylizing. We're going to stylize some stuff quick, and then we're going to parse this. This is going to be a long video. I apologize, you got a long video this week. We're going to do some very minimal styling. Very minimal. Into our style sheet, we're going to try setting the input. Oh, I already have a selector for input, so let's just do that. Width, 100%. And we'll colorize our input. Now you can look through these and see if there's other stuff you want to do. But or sorry, a focus input. Focus is a handy thing. So input type equals text. So this will only apply to our text ones. When you focus on them, so we're using a pseudo class here, right? Change the background color, and let's make it something fairly light, but also different from what the hell is our background color on our page. Yeah, we probably don't want blue. Also, probably don't want white. Like a really light green might look okay. Let's go with that one. Oh, I kind of wanted the kind of wanted the it's fine. I kind of wanted the hex color code, but that's good enough. We'll commit that later. Let's go back to our form because we got a lot more to do. So play around with stylizing your form. I did a little bit. Do some more, make it look pretty. Now we're going to parse it. So now we're going to go edit all this fun stuff. And I'm going to put in my closing curly braces because I'm totally going to forget the ones that broke our form. So let's fill in the author and the date. We're going to initialize our variables. So we can do this on one line because we're initializing literally everything to nothing, but also we're going to initialize valid. We're just going to initialize it all to nothing, valid to false. So fname, whoops. If we don't do this right, it's not going to work. So we're just making them all equal to each other, and then we're going to make them equal to an empty string. And you can do this on one line, or you can do this like this, because PHP statements end in a semicolon, right? This makes it a little easier to read. What is going on with my equal sign there? That's just weird. It's just funny on those lines. Weird. I mean, it is in a virtual machine. We don't have an error for province. But we do have a message. We're going to set it equal to an empty string, and valid is going to equal false. Alright, so we initialized our variables. Step 1 done. Now we're going to use our if statements. So if underscore server square bracket request, whoops. Yes, this must be in all caps. It's kind of annoying. If server request method equals post, then the form was submitted using post. That was actually kind of annoying. And we can start validating it. Now, this is a bit complicated. Normally a bit more complicated. It's going to be pretty complicated here too, but normally a bit more complicated. So we're going to go through each of our fields, and if they're empty, right, and we're pulling these out of the post superglobal, I think I got everything there. Whoops. Then we're going to, that stupid autocomplete again. We're going to set our error. First name cannot be empty, semicolon, and we're going to set valid is equal false, which it already is, but I mean, guess I should have initialized it to nothing. Else if, so we close our if and open a new one. Same thing for, whoops, missed something. Else if what? Else if empty post lname. So if our last name is empty, I'm going to steal this because I can do that. It'll speed things up a bit. And I'm going to steal that because that's going to be exactly the same. So this is going to be lname error. Last name cannot be empty. There we go. Else if. See, once you've done this once, you can steal some stuff, which is handy. Change that to email. It's going to be email error. Oops. And email. And then we'll set our flag. Same thing for phone. Hopefully I didn't make a typo in that first one, because that would really suck. So then our phone error, right? and set our valid field to false. And if those are all not empty, then it's valid. So we can parse it. Which, there we go. So we're just gonna parse it. So we're gonna retrieve those fields. Which oh no, I haven't already done. So fname is going to be equal to, underscore post, right? We're pulling it out of the post super global. And technically, you can use double quotes here or single quotes here. I just went the other. Pick one and use it, right? That's the convention. Same thing for lname, right? Our last name. Email. Phone. Province. And DOB. So the next part's been done for you. Really, I think the rest of it has basically been done for you. We're going to, I didn't echo message. So we're going to remove any embedded leading and trailing blanks. I did that for you already using the trim. Doing some other stuff here, string replace. I uppercase the first character in first and last name, because we can. Build a message that prints out a bunch of stuff on the screen. And we need to echo the message. In between the closing form tag and closing main tag, right down here, we're going to add PHP echo MSG. So our message goes down there. Let's see if it worked. Hopefully it worked. Stage our changes. We're just about done. Sync them. There. It's gone to GitHub. So let's pull it in on our server. There we go. Copy it recursively to document root. There we go. That's not horrible. And if we submit stuff, oh look, because I don't want that because that's going on the internet. Let's say today's date. Why not? Oh look, Ontario was selected by default. That's great. It submits. Nothing happened. Why did nothing happen? Something should have happened. Something should have happened. What am I missing? troubleshoot this off camera for a little bit. Alright, I'm back. I figured out the issue. Took a bit, but it's fixed. I was missing something up here. I hadn't initialized the variable lower, but it wasn't showing that error, which was really weird. It was showing a different error. Anyway, I'll scroll through slowly. Here's the code. This works. I also moved this outside of that block and put it in its own block. I think that helped too. A little thing. But also not a little thing, right? So there's all the PHP. There's the form. Oh, actually, you can get the form all on one. And, well, of course you'd like to see it work, right? So let's do that. So we're done the lab. I've already done this a few times, but I'm going to do it again. Back over onto the server, right, on our Apache server in AWS. We're going to do a git pull in our lab 6 to 10 assignment 1 directory. And then a sudo cp, just going to pull it from my history, -r, everything there. And we might want to do that just because. And here's our form. Look at that. So if we, oops, let's get rid of my, and let's stick in something for the password. And we hit submit. Look at that. We get a message at the bottom. Our form was processed. Life is good. Ooh. That was probably the most difficult lab of the semester. Even I had a few issues with it. So take care, be safe, have a great week. Next video we will be working on assignment 2 and talking about assignment 2. We only have 2 more videos left to go for this course. Take care. Bye for now.